الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: من أسخط الله في رضا الناس سخط الله عليه، وأسخط عليه من أرضاه في سخطه، ومن أرضى الله في سخط الناس رضي الله عنه، وأرضى عنه من أسخطه في رضاه حتى يزينه ويزين قوله وعمله في عينه، وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. رواه الطبراني ورجاله رجال الصحيح. This hadith is from the chapter of Ikhlas regarding our dars of hadith from the book of Muntakhab Hadeeth, from the chapter of Ikhlas in the subchapter of the condemnation of Riya. This hadith is from Tabarani, and it is mentioning that the chain is Sahih with this hadith. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, he narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Man askhata Allah fi ridhan nas, whosoever displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, incurs the anger or makes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala angry just to please the people. So someone is performing some acts to please the people, but knowing that these acts are against the deen, or they're very clearly such acts that would incur the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sakhit Allahu alayhi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will become angry with this individual, will become angry with that person. وَأَسْخَطَ عَلَيْهِ مَنْ أَرْضَاهُ فِي سَخَطِهِ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the very people that this person is trying to please, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make those people angry with him. So someone is performing an act just to please a group, just to please an individual, to make some people happy, and that act is clearly in defiance of the ahkam of deen, and will incur upon a person the wrath and anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this person is doing it just to please some people or please some person. First, the individual incur the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as a result of that anger and that wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the very people he's trying to please angry with him. وَمَنْ أَرْضَ اللَّهَ فِي سَخَطِ النَّاسِ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُ. And whosoever pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by displeasing people, there's a group of people, they're telling him to do something that is haram, or this individual realizes that I have to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he makes the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala his goal. Even if the people around him or those individuals, they become angry with him, he doesn't care. Radiyallahu anhu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will become pleased with him. وَأَرْضَى عَنْهُ مَنْ أَسْخَطَهُ في رضاه حتى يزينه ويزين قوله وعمله في عينه. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make this person become likable or liked, or will please the people with the people that he's displeasing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make those people also like him, will become pleased with him, to such an extent that this person's words and his actions will become beautiful in their eyes, which means they will appreciate the person's sincerity. And this is أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, this hadith is in Tabarani. What is extraordinary about this hadith is that many a times in our lives we see this hadith in action. And this is generally if you sit down with those who have accepted Islam, and they'll tell you their stories of how in the beginning when they accepted Islam, their parents and their family, they were against them. And so much so that sometimes their family members even disowned them. But the individual became sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we find that over time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes those very family members who are displeased with him or disown them, they become pleased with this person. They become happy with this person. They end up appreciating the person's actions. And this is not one case or two cases. How many cases there are? If you listen to the stories of those who accept Islam, in the beginning there is a test. They're tested, but eventually a time comes where their family becomes pleased with them, and some of them become so impressed that their family members start accepting Islam also. And we can also apply this to our day-to-day lives. How many times in our lives we were tested with a situation where maybe in the presence of our boss, in the presence of some colleagues, in the presence of some important people, it was the time of salah or it was some other hukum of deen. And we were faced with this decision. Do I go and I fulfill my duties of Islam, fulfill my rights to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or do I stay and remain and just please a few people that are there? And majority of the cases, those that have taken the option to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we find that their stories are extraordinary, how they are appreciated, their actions are eventually appreciated. Sometimes on face value it may not be appreciated, there may be some scolding yet, but over time their loyalty and their sincerity is eventually acknowledged and appreciated. And there are numerous incidents and cases like this. There are even cases of people who have to leave their jobs because their job demands of them something that is against their deen. There have been quite a few cases of even some sisters that came to the ulama and the imams and said that, our jobs demand that we take off our hijab and we're not ready to do it. And I remember one of the senior shuyukh that I know, he told me a personal story. He said, I'll tell you one story. It just happened with him that time. It was a few years back. He said there was a sister, she had accepted Islam. She had just started practicing the deen. She was a teacher at a school. And, she wanted to really practice the deen. And she was either a teacher or working at some job. And she came to the imam and said that, my boss is demanding that I take the hijab off. And I can, go to court and I can run the case. And the reality is that first, that'll take a lot of money to do that. And in the end, I still may lose my job. I have children to take care of. I have a family. And it is a very, very difficult situation for me. I mean, eventually I may end up, suing them, but it is a very hard situation. What do I do? Should I stay with the job? Should I leave the job? I have nowhere else to go. I have started interviewing, in other potential jobs, and I'm at a crossroad where if I go to work, I have to take off my hijab from tomorrow. And if I don't go to work, this is the situation I'm in. I have nothing. So the imam, he told the sister, he said, listen, why are you wearing the hijab? She said, I'm doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the imam, he said, look, I cannot tell you what to do because your situation is for you, but I will share one thing with you, that if you really trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you really believe that this is what is right, keep your hijab, then for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just leave the job. Whether you get another job or not, don't worry about that. Put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and pray to Him and say, oh Allah, I'm ready to give up my job, but I'm not ready to give up my hijab. And the Imam said, if you do that, I will give you the guarantee that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will not abandon you. You will get tested. You may end up facing a very difficult test for some time. You may even become worried. That's part of life. But I'll tell you one thing, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not abandon you. But if you opt the other way, there's no guarantee you'll keep even if you remove the hijab, what's next? It's not that your boss will stop there. He may demand other things of you, and how far are you willing to go? You will have to leave eventually. So the Imam said, this is the only advice I can give you. So the sister, she went, and the Imam was saying that hardly a month had passed. She came back and she was even in a better condition. She was driving a little bit better car and she looked happy. And she came to the Imam. She said, I just want to tell you, that day when you told me this, I went straight to my office, packed my things, and I left. And I called my boss. I said, listen, if my hijab is disturbing you this much, I quit. To me, my religion is more important than this job. She said, when I went home, I was thinking to myself, what have I done? But your words stuck with me, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not abandon me. So she said that evening, that night, I made dua. I said, oh Allah, this is what I have done. And, I left my job, and oh Allah, you know my situation. She said that I went out and I checked the mail, and the offer had come from the next job that show up to work the next day. That come and we'll start your training. She said, I was surprised that only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I gave up the other job. And immediately the responses come. So she said that I became a little bit afraid, and I thought, let me just make sure. She said, I called the new job and I told them, listen, my situation is I'm wearing a hijab, and this is the situation I was in. I left the other job because of this. I just want to clarify, if I take this job, what is your requirements? The new job said, well, that's religious discrimination, and your other job should be dealt with. Your boss should be dealt with, your ex-boss. You come to our facility, that's not a requirement. What you do with your religion is between you and your Lord, and your religion will have no say. And you want to wear a hijab, you don't want to wear a hijab. It's not a public event. Just show up to work. She said, I was so happy. She said, ever since, I've been happy, and I've had this really good job, and action has been taken against the other company. So this is the situation when it comes to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will test us with very, very difficult situations. And I'm only sharing with you this one incident. There are so many incidents that we can share with you where whoever has opted to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to remember that this universe, it is in the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala controls the hearts of mankind. Wallahu yahulu bayna al-mar'i wa qalbi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He controls the hearts of mankind. He comes between the man and his hearts. And when this is the reality, what we do understand is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wants, He controls conditions, He controls situations. Our choice in life should always be the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should never ever opt to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any way, regardless of whatever the situation, regardless of whatever the conditions might be. So this is again, the opposite is also true. We have so many cases of people who have opted to please others at the expense of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the end, it was not very good for them. And there are numerous cases and stories of that as well. It's a very, very clear hadith that we should be very, very careful with our intentions, and also we should be very, very careful with our loyalty, where our loyalty is. Next hadith from the chapter of Ikhlas, on the condemnation of Riyah, hadith number 44. عن أبي سعيد ابن أبي فضالة الأنصاري رضي الله عنه وكان في الصحابة قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إذا جمع الله الناس يوم القيامة ليوم لا ريب فيه نادى مناد من كان أشرك في عمل عمله لله أحدا فليطلب ثوابه من عند غير الله فإن الله أغنى الشركاء عن الشرك وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام رواه الترمذي. This hadith is in Tirmidhi. Sayyidina Abu Sa'id ibn Abu Fadalat al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. This is a Sahabi, a companion. The reason it is clarified that this was the Sahabi is because there were others who had a similar name, and they may have not have been Sahaba, they may have been Tabi'een. But this particular individual is a Sahabi. Sayyidina Abu Sa'id ibn Abi Fadalat al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. He narrates, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, I heard Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم saying, إذا جمع الله الناس يوم القيامة ليوم لا ريب فيه. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will gather mankind on a day, on the day of judgment, the day that there will be no doubt, and it's happening. Nada munadin, an announcer will call, which means an angel will be told to call out. And an announcer will announce on that day, Man kana ashraka fi amadin amilahu lillahi ahadan. Whosoever did any good deed associating partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whosoever did a good deed that was supposed to be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only, but they did that deed to please someone else or to be seen by someone else. فَلْيَطْلُبْ ثَوَابَهُ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ. Then let them also seek the reward from whosoever they want other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ أَغْنَى الشُّرَكَاءِ عَنِ الشِّرْكِ. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's in no need. He's independent and free of any need of having any partners to be associated with Him. Which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not tolerate that someone should do any good deed, which is supposed to be for Him, but they also add that, okay, I'm doing this good deed to be seen by so and so, to get the appreciation of someone, or to be recognized by someone. This is the amal should only be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They should not try to seek out fame or try to be recognized. This hadith is in Tirmidhi. It's a very, very stern warning that any good deed that we do, if it is a righteous deed, we should only and only do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if our intention is clear, we're sincere doing this amal only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should never think, our motive or our intention should never be to get the recognition of anyone else. And that is very clear from the a'mal of the Anbiya alayhim as-salam. When we open the Quran, they would give da'wah to the nations, and the nations sometimes used to accuse the prophets or try to bring any kind of blame against the prophets, that you're doing this so you'll get some honor or wealth, or you're looking for some reward. So the words of the Anbiya alayhim as-salam, the prophets and messengers, were very clear. مَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ إِنْ أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَىٰ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. It is not mentioned in multiple places in the Quran, in the words of multiple Anbiya alayhim as-salam, prophets and messengers. They made it very clear, مَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ. I'm not asking from you any reward, any compensation. In أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَىٰ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. My reward and compensation is with Rabb al-Alameen. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِنْ أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ. My reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this was very, very clear. Also, even when we read the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, how many occasions the Quraysh came to him and told him that whatever you want, we're ready to give it to you, just stop giving this da'wah. If you're looking for a government position, or you're looking to marry a particular woman, or you're looking for wealth, or you're looking for anything, any material thing you want, we're ready to give it to you. You just stop giving this da'wah. And we know the response of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that I'm doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm inviting you to the truth. I'm not looking for anything from you. And on some occasions, he made it very clear that even if you bring the sun and you put it in my right hand, put the moon in my left hand, even then I will not give up my da'wah, my invitation to the truth, which made it very clear the treasures of this world mean nothing to me. I'm not doing this to get any worldly position. I've been given this trust, this amana, and I have to carry out this trust and invite to the truth. And what we understand is that when it comes to ikhlas and sincerity, those that are sincere in their efforts to Allah, those that are sincere in regards to their a'mal, in regards to their efforts, their deeds, their actions, and their intentions, we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes them successful. But anyone that comes with other motives, often at times we find that for a long time it doesn't work. In some short capacity, they may become famous, or they may become whatever they're seeking for some time. But after that, they're forgotten. And that is the reality of those who lack sincerity. Any amal that we do, any action that we do, anything that we do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, should be very sincere with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For those a'mal, those actions that are not to be seen in the public, we should keep them as secret as possible, because they're between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should not care to expose that to others, because they're between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we should keep it that way. That's why those a'mal that can be seen, we should make it clear that our intention should not be affected just because someone can see us. We should keep those a'mal, making sure that we check our intention, that I'm doing this amal only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't have any other motive. Then you will find how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make us successful in this dunya and also in the akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ.